we mentioned it's a big weekend in the English Premier League, that London derby between Arsenal and Tottenham. And to talk about all of that, I've got one of the best sports presenters and journalists in the business. Joining me now is Will Dalton, talking about everything going on with the English Premier League. I believe you've just been enjoying a bowl of Rice Krispies, Will.
The best way to start the day.
It's the best way to start the day. I'm going to be telling the viewers exactly how I start the day a little bit later on the show, but I'm glad you've had your snap, crackle and pop, and there could be some snap, crackle and pop between Arsenal and Spurs this weekend. Are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I see what you've done there. Very clever. Yeah, I am. I think it's going to be a good game. Spurs, not exactly, I don't think really where they want to be going into this game. Arsenal seems to be a new Arsenal, seems to be the real deal this season. And I think they're going to go into this game full of confidence. And I think they'd be disappointed if they don't come out of it with all 3 points.
Yeah, of course, they've been unbeaten since that first game of the season. And Spurs, I think it's now, is it 5 or 6 games without a win? And they didn't look very impressive against Leverkusen. Did you watch that game in the Champions League this week, Will?
I didn't see the Leverkusen game, but I was at White Hart Lane last weekend to see them play Leicester. And there's just something not clicking in the final third of the pitch. And I think it's now beginning to get to them a little bit as well. They hit the bar, I think, a couple of times. And you can see the frustration in the side. And it's a side that almost you think they believe themselves now. They've got a problem with scoring and it's getting to them. And sometimes I think with that, it's almost like when we see a striker who hasn't scored in a while, the pressure that builds on their shoulders becomes an awful lot. And sometimes a manager has to take that striker out of the team, give them a little bit of a rest. They almost need to tap in or something from anywhere just to get them going again. It almost seems like the Spurs team has that now. Obviously, they're missing Harry Kane. And everybody else really hasn't stepped up to kind of shoulder the burden of missing the England striker.
Yeah, what do you think of Janssen? Do you think he can become a good player once he starts scoring?
I don't know, to be honest. It's the first time I saw him the weekend. Straight away, my initial impressions were he was a little bit lightweight. When you want somebody to lead the line in the way Spurs do, Harry Kane is perfect for that. But we must remember as well, Harry Kane didn't get off to the best start this season. He wasn't exactly firing in the goals. Now, over the past couple of years, we've kind of looked at him and we've noticed as well that he's not the quickest starter. He tends to gather momentum and pace as the season goes on. And that's how he ended up being, winner of the Golden Boot last season. But for Janssen, I don't know. I think he's young, relatively young. He's come from the Eredivisie. And I think as well the worry, if I was a Spurs fan, is that we've seen this happen before. We've seen strikers come from the Dutch league, score loads and loads of goals, arrive in England and just not do the business. If you look at his season before, I don't think his stats from the season before last were great. Obviously, he had a very good season last year. But we go back to the likes of people like HeungMin, who arrives at Chelsea with a very kind of, not saying big reputation, but one of scoring goal after goal after goal. And he found himself in a very similar position to Vincent Janssen, as in, he'd missed from 2 yards sort of thing. He did get better as the season went on, and I think Janssen will. He has at least scored, even though it was from the penalty spot. I spoke to him after the game and said to him, on a positive note, you've got off the mark now in the league. He didn't seem overly thrilled about it, to be honest. I thought he would have been a little bit more, I know it was a draw, but just on a personal level. So it shows, I suppose, he's maybe thinking to himself, well, yeah, I scored, but it's only a penalty. I still haven't scored from open play. And we are now in November.
Because he's came close. He's hit the bar a few times. You mentioned HeungMin. I immediately thought of Alfonso Alves, the guy who played at Middlesbrough.
That was the other
for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few of them. You do sometimes get lucky when you get a Suarez or someone like that. It's really unpredictable, the Dutch league. You don't know what type of player you're going to get. So, well, we've got a comment here from Archie Burrows on the Facebook page. He's asking, are the attacking players such as Son, Lamela, etc., good enough to help Spurs push for a title challenge? Are they title contenders for you still?
Yeah, I think so, because I think they have a knack of going on runs. They did it last season where I think they were unbeaten at home for a very, very long time. That is almost the foundation to, I think, every sort of league campaign. As Jose Mourinho used to say, you win your home games, and the big games away from home, you don't lose. And I think if Spurs could continue to do that, well, then, there is a possibility. I think they will be there. I think Kane will come back and will give them a bit more of an edge up front when it comes to, just having that focal point in the team. And again, just having a player like that back from injury will, give them a bit of a boost. But it's difficult. And I think the next month could prove to be quite important for Spurs to see where they go, because I think Pochettino needs to keep the belief in the side alive. I think that's the other big thing for them, is that really backfired for them last time, was because it's such a young squad, the mentality is there, but they haven't been through these things before. They haven't been through, as we saw at the end of last season when the pressure really came on. We saw at Stamford Bridge 2-0 up against Chelsea. Now, a team who is in contention for that league should not throw away a 2-0 lead. They should have known exactly what to do, but they let the atmosphere get to them. It boiled over, and they literally lost not their skill, but they lost kind of their balance in the side, and just kind of weren't able to just pack up, put up shop and take all 3 points. And that was the big turning point. So this season, I think that's going to be the key for them over the next month. They're now going through a little bit of a difficult spell. If they can emerge from this without maybe losing too many games, again, this weekend is going to be huge to see. It'll be a really good marker to see where Spurs are, I think.
Well, one club you know a lot about, Will, is Chelsea. I know you work very closely with them. Their season has kind of turned on its head in the last month. When I launched this show at the beginning of October, one of the things we were talking about is how bookmakers had stopped taking bets on Conte to be the next manager to be sacked. Since then, they've now won 4 Premier League games in a row. Are you expecting them to continue against Everton?
Yeah, well, I think that's a few bookmakers being a little bit naughty, to be honest with you. I had a friend ring me and ask me, and I was like, not a chance. Absolutely not a chance. So I do, yeah. I spoke to Gary Cahill yesterday. We had a good long chat just about things. And obviously, Gary's a great lad, and he was subject to quite a lot of abuse from football fans all over. He did make a few mistakes at the start of the season. But as we were chatting yesterday, a lot of people seem to forget that Gary Cahill and David Luiz are the 2 centre-backs who started the Champions League final in Munich for Chelsea, and they were able to get the better of Bayern Munich on that night, a very good Bayern Munich side. So these 2 boys are not bad defenders, just sometimes it depends on the manager, the tactics, and as we can see now, they've switched to this back 3, and they look a completely different side. And as I said to Gary yesterday, when we go back 6 weeks ago, okay, they were winning before the Arsenal-Liverpool game. They were doing okay. They started the season actually quite well, which a lot of people have kind of forgotten about. But they looked like a side who would concede goals. Now they don't. We saw last weekend against Southampton, against a tricky side. They're very good at home, Southampton. And Chelsea were able to just close them off, do what they needed to do, hit them on the counter-attack, and they were clinical in their finishing. And I think Conte has, from what, again, talking to Gary yesterday, he seems to be an ultimate drill master. So in other words, as Gary said to me, what Conte wants, Conte gets. He takes them on the pitch and they go over drill after drill after drill to make sure. And he said, there's no excuse for us now not to know what we have to do. It's still a work in progress. The tactic is obviously new. He said, he's played in a back 3. He said a handful of times in his whole career before, Conte has come in. But he said it's working. We're enjoying it. He said it's something nice to get your teeth into. So, yeah, I think the confidence is beginning to grow at Chelsea, and if they can get that solidity back, especially in the back 4 that they were famous for under, Jose Mourinho and Carlo Ancelotti, then watch out, I think.
And it looks like David Luiz has really enjoyed that role in the back 3. Does he get enough credit that he deserves, or is he always seems to be a focal point for any kind of mistakes? Is it justified, Will?
Well, I think in the past, yes, but it's as if we're seeing a new David Luiz over the past few weeks. It's been, I wouldn't say an incredible transformation. That's probably a bit too strong. But we've definitely seen almost a mature David Luiz. It's as if, Antonio Conte has taken him aside and said, look, if in trouble, you put that ball in Rosette. And I've noticed it a few times that David when he used to go on his mazy little dribbles out from the back, and you'd be going, this is great, but if he loses it, what's going to happen? Whereas now he just seems to be a little bit more mature. I think the back three gives him a little bit more freedom as well, because if you need a venturing centre-back, or if you have a venturing centre-back, then you've got two others to cover him. So it gives him a little bit of freedom in that sense. But as I said, I think he's matured. I think he knows that, he won't get away with it with Antonio Conte, and that he needs to follow the plan, and the plan is now working for the whole team, because they all seem, again, Gary said to me yesterday, you have to get on board with the manager. We all have. And I think when that happens, that's when you get a real team.
I know you've got to rush off soon. I know you're going to the Emirates to do the Arsenal press conference. Just want to get your quick thoughts on Manchester City. Huge win against Barcelona this week. Is Pep finally turning this team into his type of Pep Guardiola side?
Well, that's a difficult one, because I know he described it as a landmark victory. It is in some regards, but for me, a landmark victory for Man City is beating Barcelona in the knockout stages. They've beaten Barcelona, all credit to them. It was a very, very impressive win. But Barcelona play the sort of football that Man City play. So Pep is never going to put out a bad side against a team like that. The real test for Pep Guardiola and his team is, for instance, this weekend at home to Middlesbrough. Yeah, they're at home, so they should feel comfortable. But the games like away to Middlesbrough, away to Swansea, away to other teams, away to Burnley, these sort of sides which present a completely different challenge for Pep Guardiola and his side, and he needs to be able to adapt to that. But in fairness to him, as he said, we beat a Barcelona side who's been playing that way for 20 years or so, and we've been playing it for 3 or 4 months. So I think it is still a work in progress. I think he needs time, and I think he'll get it. He's got a huge squad to choose from, lots of talent in all areas of the pitch. So there's no real excuse by the end of the season for them not to be up there challenging, if not winning the league. But as I said, it's those other. Sorry, my video's dropped down there. It's those other games that will be the kind of, I think, true test for him. And it's not been great over the past few weeks, so they need to get their league campaign back on track.
Well, it's been amazing to get your thoughts this morning. We've really enjoyed what you've had to say. Just before you go, just remind us how we can follow you on Twitter, and if there's anything else you'd like to promote before you go.
Yeah, no worries. You can follow me on Twitter at Will Dalton, DALTON01, and it's the same for Instagram as well. I always tweet lots of pictures from around the league and training and interviews with other people and stuff. And yeah, send me any messages you want.
We will do. Will Dalton, thank you so much for appearing on Sportuccino this morning. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Take care.